You ever have a day start off so normal that you don't see the chaos coming? That was me, just sipping my coffee on my porch, when a teenage boy, no older than 16, walked straight into my driveway and pointed at my Harley. "I'll take that one," he said, as casually as someone ordering lunch. I thought he was joking. I even laughed. But the kid didn't crack a smile. "I'm serious," he said. "Mom said you'd give it to me. She talked to the HOA. I set my mug down. "Excuse me?" He crossed his arms and nodded toward the cul-de-sac. That's when I saw her. Karen, the queen of the HOA, standing there with her arms folded, sunglasses on, like she was about to auction off my property. She waved at me like we were best friends. "She said you don't even ride it anymore," the kid huffed. "And the noise bothers the neighborhood. Let me make this clear. I ride it every weekend. I've had that Harley for 12 years, customized it myself. It's not just a bike. It's a part of who I am. And nobody, especially not some entitled HOA lady, is taking it from me." I walked over to Karen, who was now on my lawn as if it belonged to her. "What is this?" She didn't even blink. "That motorcycle is an eyesore, and your engine's loud enough to rattle windows. The board agreed. You should donate it to someone who would appreciate it." "And by someone, you mean your son." "Exactly," she said. "He's turning 17 next month. It'd be perfect." I laughed out loud. "You've lost your mind." That's when her expression shifted. "Fine," she said. "If you won't be neighborly, I'll escalate this." I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I would soon find out. And it involved police lights, HOA threats, and a meeting with the state attorney. The following Saturday, things turned from absurd to downright insane. I'd just come back from a ride, the Harley humming like a dream. I parked it under the oak tree next to my garage. I didn't even have time to take off my helmet before I heard the sirens. 2 police cruisers screeched into my driveway. "Sir, step away from the motorcycle." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "Step away from the vehicle now." I backed up, confused. "Is there a problem, officer?" One of them took out a notepad. "We got a report of stolen property. A local resident claims you unlawfully took possession of a motorcycle belonging to her minor son. You could have knocked me over with a feather." "Wait, what? This is my bike. I have the registration inside." Karen came marching over from across the street, her son trailing behind her. "There it is," she shouted, pointing dramatically at my Harley. "That's the one. He promised to give it to my son, then he backed out. That's theft, right?" I thought she had to be joking. The officer didn't. "Do you have proof of ownership?" he asked. "Yeah, inside." "Sir, please stay where you are." As they went to retrieve the papers, Karen leaned in and whispered with a smug grin, "You could have just done the right thing. Now the whole neighborhood's going to know what kind of man you really are." The officers returned a few minutes later, clearly annoyed. "It's his. Clean title. Been in his name for years." Karen's smirk vanished. Her son scowled. "This isn't fair. He said I could have it." "I said no such thing," I snapped. Karen, suddenly flustered, changed tactics. "Well, maybe he didn't steal it, but he lied to us. That's fraud." Even the cops were done by that point. But Karen wasn't finished. 3 days later, a letter was taped to my door. It was a formal HOA violation for community disruption and failure to comply with neighborhood courtesy standards. She had filed a complaint claiming my motorcycle was a nuisance, that I'd made false verbal agreements, and that my hostile attitude had created a toxic environment. This was no longer just a busybody being annoying. This was a coordinated attempt to intimidate me into giving up my property. So I made a call, not to the HOA, but to an old friend, Mark, who worked at the state attorney's office. I told him everything. He took it seriously. "Sounds like she's trying to weaponize the HOA to force a private property transfer," he said. "That's not just harassment. It might be civil coercion." He advised me to write a full statement and bring in all my documentation. I spent the next 24 hours compiling everything, including footage from my doorbell cam of the kid pointing at my bike and saying, "Mom said you'd give it to me." That was gold. When I walked into the state attorney's office with, my folder, I felt like I was loading ammo into a cannon. A week later, Mark called back. "She filed a complaint here too," he said. "Claimed you tried to swindle her son. We've reviewed both sides. Don't worry. You're not the one under the microscope anymore." The HOA meeting was set for Thursday. I showed up early, dressed sharp, folder in hand. Karen was already there, holding court. She raised her hand immediately and launched into her performance, painting herself and her son as victims of my erratic behavior. When she finished, the HOA president turned to me. I stood up and calmly laid out my evidence. The security footage of her son on my private property. The police report showing no wrongdoing. The letter from the state attorney's office confirming her claim was unfounded. The room grew silent. Karen's smug expression melted. The board. President cleared his throat. "Based on what we're seeing, this appears to be an abuse of our HOA complaint process. You'd think after that humiliation she would back down. Nope." 3 days later, a letter from a law firm arrived, a cease and desist, demanding I either surrender the motorcycle as restitution or face civil action. She had actually hired an attorney. This wasn't about the bike anymore. This was about ego. She couldn't stand that someone had stood their ground. I called Mark again. He chuckled. "She's bluffing. But if she's trying to initiate civil action based on something the board already dismissed, she's opening herself up to liability." We drafted a response, a formal legal rebuttal, warning her of harassment and the possibility of filing a civil claim of my own. The moment she got that letter, she went silent. Completely. It was like watching a balloon slowly deflate, but the neighborhood was wide awake now. People started talking. It turned out I wasn't the only one she had harassed over the years. At the next HOA meeting, a petition was brought forward, signed by over half the neighborhood, to remove Karen from the board for misuse of authority. She didn't even show up to fight it. She was voted out. Gone. And me? I still have my Harley. I still park it under the same oak tree. And now, when I rev that engine, nobody complains. Because the woman, who thought she could take it all from me, ended up losing everything herself.